They thought they could scare him. They thought a 16-year-old boy standing alone could be broken. But they were wrong. That night in a quiet town called Eastvale, 5 men learned that real strength doesn't roar. It breathes. The wooden door of the Eastvale Youth Center banged open. The sound echoed across the empty hall, bouncing off faded walls covered in children's drawings. 5 bikers stepped in, their boots heavy against the floor. The leader, a broad man with a thick beard and a tattoo curling up his neck, smirked. "You picked the wrong place to play hero, kid," he said. Eli Carter, tall for 16, didn't move. He had been closing up for the evening, stacking papers and tidying the donation jar when they arrived. Now that jar lay shattered on the floor, coins scattered like small explosions of hope. The leader's name was Rex Morrow, a man the town whispered about but never challenged. His crew called themselves the Sovereigns, though everyone knew they ruled through fear, not honor. Eli stood still, measuring everything: exits, distance, movement. His father's voice echoed in his mind, steady and calm. 4 counts in, hold, 4 counts out. Control the breath. Control the moment. The men closed in, circling him like wolves testing prey. "This center isn't for your kind," Rex said, his voice low, his breath heavy with tobacco and power. "You don't belong here." Eli didn't respond. He just kept breathing, calm, centered, watching. That silence made Rex angrier. He shoved Eli against the wall, the sound of impact sharp in the empty room. "What's a boy like you gonna do now?" Rex sneered. He crushed a coin beneath his boot, metal scraping wood. The air in the room thickened. Eli's heartbeat slowed instead of quickening. His training took over, the kind taught by a man who believed control was stronger than fury. Outside, the sun was dipping, streaking the windows with gold. Inside, the future of a town was about to shift. The Eastvale Community Center wasn't just a building. It was a lifeline. Once it had been an abandoned fire station. Now it was the only safe place for kids from the poorer neighborhoods, a place where laughter replaced fear. Eli had been part of that transformation. He volunteered every day after school, teaching math, coaching basketball, and mentoring kids who had no one else. He didn't talk about it much. He just showed up. The younger kids adored him, especially 10-year-old Devin, whose mother worked night shifts at the hospital. "You're getting these fractions faster every week," Eli said with a smile, pointing at Devin's worksheet. Devin grinned, proud. "Can we shoot some hoops before my mom comes?" "Sure, let me lock up first," Eli replied, heading toward the front door. That was when it crashed open. 5 shadows spilled into the light. The Sovereign's Rex scanned the room like a king inspecting a conquered land. "So this is where the council's money goes, huh?" he said, dragging a gloved hand across a row of tables. "To charity cases." Eli stepped between the bikers and the children. "We're closing soon. Can I help you with something?" Rex ignored him. He picked up a children's book from a shelf, flipping through it with mock curiosity before tossing it to the floor. "Looks like a waste to me. Roads are falling apart, but we're funding finger painting for strays." The boys behind him chuckled. Devin shrank behind a chair, clutching his backpack. Eli took a breath, calm but firm. "This place runs mostly on donations. Private ones. People who care about these kids," Rex smirked. "Private, huh? Heard different. Heard my tax dollars are keeping the lights on so you can play teacher." His tone twisted the word teacher into an insult. Eli felt a flash of anger, but his father's first rule returned. Never let them see what moves you. "Mr. Morrow, if you have concerns, the council meets every Tuesday. You can bring them up there," Eli said evenly, bending to pick up the fallen book. Rex stepped closer. "You'd be happy to what?" "Tell me how things work in my own town." He jabbed a finger at Eli's chest. "I was born here. My father helped build this place. Who are you to tell me what's best for Eastvale?" The room felt smaller now, the air heavy with tension. From the doorway, one of the volunteers called out, her voice trembling. "Mrs. Turner's here to pick up her kids." "Good," Eli said without looking away from Rex. "Take them through the side door." When the last child left, only Devin remained, eyes wide, silent as a statue. "This is a community space," Eli said quietly. "Everyone's welcome, but we're closing now." Rex's lip curled. "Everyone's welcome, huh? Funny. I don't remember seeing your face here when I was a kid. Where'd you come from, boy?" Eli had heard that question before. Too many times. My father moved us here 3 years ago. He retired after 20 years in service. Service? One of the bikers snorted. Welfare office, maybe? Eli didn't take the bait. Army Special Forces. Something flickered across Rex's eyes. Doubt, maybe. But it vanished as quickly as it came. So you're a military brat playing social worker now, he said. Tell me, soldier boy, do the parents know you're letting these kids run wild? Devon stepped forward, his voice trembling but brave. He doesn't let us run wild. He helps us with school. He helps everyone. Rex turned on the boy like a predator. Nobody asked you, kid. Devon, Eli said softly. Wait for your mom in the office. The boy hesitated, then obeyed. Rex smirked. You talk big for someone standing alone. Eli's jaw tightened. I'm not alone. I just don't need a crowd to stand my ground. Through the glass, townspeople had gathered, watching from the sidewalk. Parents, neighbors, elders. None of them stepped in. They never did when the sovereigns were involved. Rex's reach stretched everywhere. Businesses, police, even City Hall. Fear had become part of the town's rhythm. Eli could feel it, the weight of it pressing down on everyone. His father's words returned. Control the breath. Control the outcome. The children who come here deserve better than fear, Eli said quietly. They deserve a chance to grow up free. Rex chuckled, but the sound carried less confidence now. Big words, soldier boy. Words are cheap. Outside headlights appeared. Devon's mother had arrived. More people gathered, murmuring. The moment was becoming public. Rex leaned in close. You think you can change this town? You don't know how deep it goes. Eli met his stare, calm and unflinching. Then maybe it's time someone tried. The tension in the air could have cracked glass. That night, Eastvale shifted. It was subtle, but it started there, in a quiet room where one boy refused to bow. 3 days later, the Eastvale Community Center hummed with nervous energy. What was supposed to be a simple fundraiser had turned into the most talked-about event in town. The confrontation between Eli and Rex had spread like wildfire. Some whispered about it with admiration, others with doubt. Everyone had an opinion. Eli stood at the entrance arranging a stack of donated books, pretending to focus on small tasks while his mind replayed that night. The tension, the silence, the look in Rex's eyes when he realized Eli wasn't afraid. It had all felt like a fuse being lit under the town's surface. The center looked brighter than usual. Handmade posters decorated the walls. Children's art hung proudly from string lights, and a long table overflowed with baked goods. But beneath the laughter and music there was a quiet unease. People came not just to donate but to see, to witness the boy who had stood against Rex Morrow. Eli, we're already $200 ahead of last year, said Mrs. Whitman, the center's treasurer. Her wrinkled hands trembled slightly as she held the donation ledger. Maybe people are finally seeing what this place means. Eli smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Maybe, he said softly, though he knew curiosity brought many of them here. Some came to support him. Some came hoping to see him fail. The line between the two was thin. Near the back, Devon was helping a volunteer arrange cupcakes. The boy's energy hadn't dimmed since the incident, though his mother kept glancing toward the door as if expecting trouble. Eli noticed and his stomach tightened. The sound came suddenly, heavy boots on wooden floors. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The front door swung open and Rex Morrow walked in. He wasn't alone. 6 men followed him, their leather vests creaking as they entered. The laughter died. People shifted nervously, some pretending to focus on tables, others staring outright. Rex smiled, a slow, satisfied smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well now, he said, voice carrying across the room. Looks like I'm late to the party. Eli straightened, forcing his pulse to slow. You're welcome to look around, he said evenly. It's a public event. Rex walked closer, his boots clicking against the floor. Oh, I don't need permission. This place was paid for with tax money, wasn't it? I'm just checking where my hard-earned dollars are going. It's privately funded, Eli corrected. Every dollar is accounted for, Rex smirked. Sure, maybe I'll take a look at those books myself. See if everything lines up. His voice carried a taunt, an accusation without words. The people nearest to him stepped aside, giving him space he hadn't earned but demanded all the same. Eli stepped forward, closing the distance. If you have questions about our programs, I'll answer them. But you don't intimidate people here. The room seemed to inhale as one. Mrs. Whitman froze. Devin's mother took her son's hand. No one dared speak. Rex's grin widened. You've got a mouth on you, boy. But talking's easy. What have you actually done for this town? You've been here, 3 years? I've been here my whole life. Maybe that's the problem, came a voice from the crowd. It was Mr. Lyle, the retired postman who usually avoided confrontation. All eyes turned to him. You've been here your whole life, Rex, and what's changed? The center's helping kids you never gave a damn about. Rex's eyes flashed. Watch your mouth, old man. Eli lifted a hand. Stop, this isn't why we're here. But Rex wasn't listening. He turned back to the crowd, raising his voice. You all think this boy's a hero? He's nothing. Just another outsider who doesn't understand Eastvale. Tell me, how many of you knew he wasn't even born here? A few murmurs spread. Doubt. The poison of it seeped fast. Rex knew exactly where to strike. He's got no qualifications, no roots, Rex went on. And yet you let him tell you how to raise your kids? What gives him that right? Dedication, Eli said. His voice was quiet, but the word cut through the noise. Consistency, respect. Rex barked a laugh. Big words. You think respect builds roads? You think dedication fixes what's broken here? The silence deepened. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of conflict. People were holding their breath. Then a frail voice broke through it. He's fixed plenty, said Mrs. Whitman. My grandson comes here after school instead of running the streets. That's more than you've ever done. The crowd shifted again, murmurs of agreement rising like embers catching flame. Rex's expression hardened. You all talk about respect, but leadership is earned. So let's see if your golden boy can lead. He turned to Eli, his smile returning, sharp and deliberate. Tomorrow, noon, the old factory lot. A fair challenge. Strength, endurance, leadership. We'll see what this so-called role model is really made of. The challenge hit the room like a spark in dry grass. Whispers erupted. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed nervously. It was theater, and Rex knew it. Eli stood perfectly still. Every instinct told him not to take the bait, but he could feel the weight of the crowd pressing on him. The same crowd that looked to him for courage but rarely offered their own. If he refused, he'd confirm every doubt Rex had just planted. If he accepted, he'd step into a fight with rules Rex would twist to his favor. Mrs. Whitman touched his arm. Don't do it, Eli. You don't owe him anything. Eli met her gaze. If I walk away now, he wins. And the next time he comes, it won't be me he targets. It'll be the kids. He turned back to Rex. I'll be there. Rex's smile widened. Good. Then everyone gets to see the truth. As he and his men left, the room slowly filled with noise again. Uneasy, scattered voices, half pride, half fear. Eli stood in the center of it, surrounded yet somehow utterly alone. He stayed until the last table was cleared and the lights dimmed. The moment the door clicked shut behind the final volunteer, the silence returned, the kind that makes thoughts louder than words. Outside, the night air was cool, carrying the scent of rain. His truck sat waiting beneath a flickering street lamp. He climbed in, started the engine, and stared at the steering wheel for a long time before pulling away. Halfway home, his phone rang. His father's name glowed on the screen. He answered. You're late, his father said. His tone wasn't scolding, just matter of fact, the way soldiers note the time. Things ran long, Eli replied. There was a pause. I heard about Rex Morrow. Eli's grip on the wheel tightened. News travels fast. In towns like this, it always does, his father said. What happened? Eli explained everything. The intrusion, the challenge, the way the room had turned to him for answers he didn't have. When he finished, there was only silence. Why'd you agree? His father finally asked. Because walking away would have told everyone I was afraid. His father's voice softened. You're not afraid of him, son. You're afraid of what people will think if you don't fight. Eli said nothing. He didn't need to. The truth hung between them like fog. When this is over, his father said, they'll know who you really are and who he is. But you'd better be ready for that truth to change everything. The call ended, but the words stayed with him, heavy as the night. By the time he pulled into the driveway of their small brick house, rain had begun to fall, gentle but steady. His father was waiting at the front door, a shadow in the porch light. The stakes were no longer just pride or reputation. They were legacy. And Eastvale was watching. The next morning, Eli would wake to a town divided. a challenge waiting and a storm that refused to stay in the sky. The storm came before dawn, a restless rain that whispered against the windows of the Carter house. Eli lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of it. The town was still sleeping, but in his mind the echoes of yesterday refused to quiet. Every word from Rex replayed like a dare he couldn't turn away from. He sat up, swung his legs off the bed, and pulled on a faded gray hoodie. The floorboards creaked softly under his weight. When he reached the kitchen, his father was already there. 2 mugs of coffee steamed on the table, set with the same precision he'd used when teaching Eli to fold his first uniform. "Couldn't sleep?" his father asked without looking up. "Didn't really try," Eli said. "You're thinking about today." Eli nodded. "He wants a spectacle. He'll make it one." His father leaned back in his chair, the wood groaning under his solid frame. Years of service had left his body slower, but his eyes sharp. "Walk me through what you see happening." Eli closed his eyes and pictured it. He'll bring his gang, maybe some of their friends. He'll play to the crowd, make it look like strength. "I'll be there alone." "And how will you respond?" "With control," Eli said quietly. "Like you taught me." His father took a sip of coffee, then set the cup down carefully. "Control is good, but control isn't enough if you don't know what you're standing for." Eli looked up, confused. "I'm standing for the center, for what's right. You think that's all?" His father's tone was gentle, but his gaze was unyielding. "This isn't just about the center. This is about who leads, who decides what belongs. Men like Rex have been deciding that for decades." The words landed like weight. Eli thought of the faces of the kids at the center. Devon, the little ones learning to read, the teens who came just to escape the streets for an hour. He realized then it wasn't only about the building. It was about giving them something Rex had always denied people: belonging. His father reached into the cabinet and returned with a small wooden box. It was worn smooth from years of handling. Inside were medals, photographs, and a single bronze pendant shaped like a compass. He placed it in Eli's palm. "Your grandfather carried this through 2 tours in Vietnam," he said. He used to say it reminded him where true north was, even when the world spun in chaos. Eli turned it over. On the back was an engraving: "Not all strength makes noise." "He passed that lesson to me," his father said. "And now it's yours. When you go out there today, remember, Rex expects a fight. But a real leader doesn't meet fire with fire. He makes the fire run out of air." Eli nodded slowly, closing his fingers around the pendant. "I understand." His father's eyes softened. "Good, because today isn't about showing what you can do. It's about showing who you are." By noon, the rain had stopped, leaving the world slick and shining. The old factory lot at the edge of town had never seen this many people. Cars lined the cracked asphalt, their wipers still ticking as engines cooled. Families stood in clusters. Shop owners, teenagers, teachers. Even the mayor had shown up, though he stayed near the back, pretending it was civic interest, not fear of choosing a side. Rex was already there, his black motorcycle gleaming, the sovereigns gathered around him like soldiers waiting for orders. He spotted Eli approaching and smirked. "Didn't think you'd actually show." "I said I would," Eli replied simply. "Then let's give Eastvale a show to remember." Rex climbed onto an old flatbed truck that had been dragged into place like a stage. 3 tests, he announced. Strength, endurance, and leadership. "Let's see if our boy Wonder's got what it takes." The crowd murmured, half anxious, half eager. Eli said nothing. He could feel every eye on him. Devon was there too, holding his mother's hand tightly. Rex dropped to the ground and clapped his hands. "First test, 50 push-ups, then carry those blocks from one end to the other. Timed." He pointed to a stack of concrete pieces left behind from the factory's demolition. Without waiting, Rex got down and began. He moved fast, his men counting loudly. When he finished, sweat shone on his forehead, but pride blazed brighter. 4 minutes, 15 seconds, one of them announced. "Your turn, soldier boy," Rex said. Eli knelt and began. He didn't rush. Every push-up was clean, even steady. He didn't need to prove speed, he needed to show control. When he moved to the blocks, he studied each one first, testing the weight and balance before lifting. He carried them efficiently, conserving energy where Rex had spent it. When the last block hit the line, Mrs. Whitman, acting as the crowd's unofficial timekeeper, called out, 3 minutes, 42 seconds. A ripple of surprise spread through the crowd. Someone whistled softly. Rex's smile flickered. Beginner's luck, he muttered. Second test, he barked. A run around the lot with a weight bag. Let's see that endurance. Rex went first again, sprinting out strong but fading halfway through, the weight slowing him. When Eli's turn came, he settled into a measured pace, each step deliberate. He didn't chase time, he chased rhythm. When he crossed the line seconds faster than Rex, the murmurs turned into open talk. For the first time, the crowd's loyalty wavered. Rex's jaw tightened. Final test, he said. His voice was sharp, almost desperate now. Leadership. He pointed to a rusted ladder leading up to a water tower. Climb up there, grab the flag I left, and come back down. Simple. Eli glanced at the ladder. Several rungs were bent, others missing entirely. The bolts at the top were corroded to powder. He looked back at Rex. That structure's not stable. Rex grinned. Leadership means taking risks. Think you can lead from the ground? Eli studied it again, then turned to the crowd. A leader's job isn't to show off. It's to make sure nobody gets hurt doing something pointless. A man in the crowd, a construction worker, spoke up. He's right. That thing's a death trap. The murmur that followed was no longer about doubt. It was agreement. Rex's face reddened. Fine, he snapped. Let's make it simpler. He threw out challenge after challenge, trying to find one Eli couldn't meet. A debate on town policy, a question about leadership, even a dare to recruit volunteers on the spot. Each time Eli met him with quiet logic and composure. Each time the crowd shifted a little more. Rex was losing control and everyone could see it. The show he'd orchestrated had turned against him. Finally, he stepped close, his voice low. You think you're better than me? I think I'm not here to prove that, Eli said. That calm infuriated Rex. He shoved him hard. Eli stepped back but didn't raise his fists. The second shove came harder, almost a swing. Come on, Rex roared. Show them what you've got. Eli's voice was steady. This isn't a fight. Rex's fist shot forward, aiming for Eli's face. But it met air. Eli's body shifted just enough that the punch missed, sending Rex stumbling. Another swing, another miss. Each time Eli moved with quiet precision, deflecting without striking back. The crowd gasped. What looked like luck began to feel like mastery. Stop running and fight me, Rex bellowed. Eli stood firm. You're showing them exactly who you are. Rex's fury boiled over. He lunged with full force. And this time Eli stepped forward instead of back. A single motion redirected Rex's momentum, turning his power against him. Rex hit the ground hard, air leaving his lungs in a stunned gasp. The lot fell silent. Eli stepped back, hands open, his expression calm. Are you hurt? He asked. Rex stared up at him, disbelief on his face. Who the hell are you? The same person I was yesterday, Eli said. Someone who believes this town deserves better. Rex didn't answer. He looked around, seeing what Eli already knew. The crowd had seen everything. The strength they'd admired in Rex was gone, stripped away by his own temper. The boy he'd tried to humiliate had become something else in their eyes. A symbol. For a long moment no one moved. Then Eli's father's cane struck the ground as he walked forward from the edge of the crowd. His presence alone quieted the whispers. When he reached Eli, he nodded once, pride soft in his eyes. The people of Eastvale began to murmur again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was change. And somewhere in that broken lot, beneath a sky clearing after the storm, the balance of the town began to shift for good. Rex pushed himself off the ground slowly, dust clinging to his jacket. His breath came heavy and uneven, but his fury had drained away, replaced by something uncertain. The crowd watched him in silence. Even his men didn't step forward this time. They'd seen what everyone else had seen. Eli hadn't thrown a single punch, and yet the fight was already over. Eli stood a few feet away, posture relaxed but alert. He made no move to gloat. You can still get up, Mr. Morrow, he said quietly. But the people here aren't afraid anymore. Rex looked around. The faces staring back weren't the ones that used to flinch at his shadow. They were steady, watching, measuring. That realization struck harder than the fall. He brushed the dirt from his hands, glanced at Eli one last time, and muttered, This isn't finished. But the words came out thin, hollow, the kind of threat that carried no teeth. Eli nodded. You're right. It's not finished until this town stops choosing fear over decency. Rex turned toward his motorcycle, his men following without a word. The engines roared to life one by one. the sound filling the lot like thunder, but not a single person stepped aside to clear a path. The crowd simply watched, their silence its own statement. When the bikes finally rolled away, the quiet that followed felt heavier than the noise that came before it. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Eli's father stepped forward, the sound of his cane striking concrete sharp in the stillness. People turned. Some of the older townsfolk stared in disbelief as they recognized him. Mr. Hale Carter, once Captain Carter of the Special Forces. A man many thought had died overseas years ago. "Didn't expect to see you here," said a man near the front, his voice trembling slightly. "You're the same Hale Carter who led the rescue in Sangora Valley, aren't you?" Hale gave a brief nod, eyes never leaving his son. "That was a lifetime ago." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few veterans straightened instinctively, recognizing the name. The boy who had just humbled Rex Morrow was the son of one of the most respected soldiers the region had ever known. But what caught people's attention wasn't the revelation. It was how Eli had carried himself without leaning on that legacy. Rex stopped near his bike, half turning as he heard the whispers spreading. His jaw clenched. He hadn't just lost a fight. He'd picked it with the wrong family. A family that didn't fight for glory, but for principle. Hale's voice carried across the lot, deep and calm. "You all saw what happened here. My son didn't need a weapon or anger to win. He used judgment. That's what real leadership looks like." The words hung in the air, firm and undeniable. Someone in the crowd started clapping, softly at first, then louder. Soon others joined, and the sound swelled until it filled the space where fear used to live. It wasn't about applause for a victory. It was about release. The kind of applause people give when they finally exhale after holding their breath too long. Eli stood still, absorbing it all, unsure what to do with the attention. He didn't smile. He only looked at his father, who gave a small, knowing nod. Later that afternoon, after the crowd had dispersed and the dust began to settle, Eli walked the perimeter of the lot alone. The noise of the town was distant now, replaced by the hum of wind against broken windows. His father joined him quietly, his limp more pronounced than usual after the long day. "You kept your promise," Hale said. "You didn't let him drag you down to his level." Eli looked out at the horizon where the sun was dipping low behind the roofs of Eastvale. "He wanted a fight and I gave him one. Just not the kind he expected," Hale smiled faintly. "That's exactly what I taught you. Power isn't about who hits harder. It's about who keeps control when everyone else loses it." They stood in silence for a while. The town felt different somehow. The kind of different that doesn't come from one event but from something deeper, a shift in how people see what's possible. As they headed toward the truck, an older man approached, hat in hand. It was Mr. Lane, owner of the hardware store downtown. "Carter," he said, nodding respectfully to Hale before turning to Eli. "You've got more composure than most men twice your age. If you ever decide to run for council, you'd have my vote." Eli chuckled softly. "I think I'll stick to helping kids for now." Mr. Lane grinned. "Then you're already doing more good than most folks in office." They parted with a handshake. As Eli climbed into the truck, he glanced back at the lot, empty now, but somehow alive with memory. That was where the town began to wake up. The next day, Eastvale was buzzing. The story had spread through every diner, barbershop, and classroom. Some called Eli foolish for standing up to Rex, others called him brave. Either way, no one could stop talking about him. At the community center that afternoon, more volunteers showed up than ever before. Parents who used to keep their distance came to help. Even the kids sensed something had changed. Devin ran up as soon as Eli entered. "Mom says you beat the bad guys," he blurted, his eyes wide with excitement. Eli knelt beside him. "I didn't beat anyone, Devin. We just showed that doing the right thing doesn't mean fighting." "But they're not coming back, right?" Devin asked, looking worried. Eli smiled gently. "If they do, we'll handle it together. The right way." Across the room, Mrs. Whitman was busy organizing donations. "We're getting calls from people who've never donated before," she said. "I think the town's finally realizing what we've been doing here." Eli nodded. "That's good. Let's make sure we use this momentum to help more kids." He walked past the wall of photographs, the ones showing smiling faces, art projects, and little victories that most people never noticed. For the first time, he felt like the work might last. The cracks in Eastvale's walls were showing, but light was finding its way through. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Eli sat on the steps outside, watching families leave. His father joined him, lowering himself carefully onto the step beside him. "The mayor called," Hale said. "Wants to meet you," said the council's talking about funding new programs for the center. Eli looked surprised. "That's a change. Fear makes people quiet," Hale replied. "But courage makes them curious. You gave them both yesterday." Eli smiled faintly. "You think it'll last?" Hale stared at the horizon. "Change never lasts on its own. You'll have to keep proving it, one choice at a time." The air grew cooler as the streetlights flickered on. For the first time in a long while, the streets of Eastvale felt calm. No tension in the air, no eyes watching from the shadows. Just quiet, steady peace, and in that peace something new was taking root, something that no one, not even Rex Morrow, could tear down again. Days turned into a week, and Eastvale began to breathe differently. People who had walked past each other for years without a word now nodded in greeting. The laughter from the community center carried farther down the street. For once, the air in town felt lighter, as if a long shadow had finally started to fade. Eli arrived early each morning, unlocking the front doors before the sun had fully risen. The sound of sneakers squeaking on the polished floor and pencils scratching against paper had become his favorite soundtrack. Every child who walked through those doors reminded him why he had stood his ground. This was what he had been fighting for. Not pride, not reputation, but peace. Still, not everything had settled. Whispers lingered. Rumors spread like thin smoke, some about Rex, some about Eli's father, and some about how Eastvale might never go back to the way it was. People liked peace, but they also liked gossip. Eli learned to let the noise pass like wind against a wall. On Thursday afternoon, while he was helping Devin and a few other kids with homework, Mrs. Whitman came rushing in, clutching a stack of papers. "Eli," she said breathlessly, "the council wants you to present at their next meeting. They're talking about expanding the center." He blinked. "Expanding?" She nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "They're considering funding a new vocational program, something to train teens in trades, construction, automotive work, even business basics. They want you to propose how it could run." For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then a grin broke through his surprise. "That's incredible. Do they really mean it?" Mrs. Whitman chuckled. "After what you did, I think they finally understand what leadership looks like." Devin tugged at Eli's sleeve. "Can we build stuff too? Like engines and machines?" Eli laughed softly. "Maybe soon. But first we've got to show them we can handle the responsibility." That night, after everyone had gone home and the lights were dimmed, Eli sat in the main room surrounded by stacks of proposals and notes. He worked long into the night, sketching out plans for classes, budgets, and schedules. The center's future was no longer about survival. It was about growth. When he finally closed his notebook, the street outside was empty. He stepped out into the cool night, locking the door behind him. His father's truck was parked across the street, headlights off, engine idling. Hale was waiting, as he often did. "Working late again?" Hale asked as Eli climbed in, trying to figure out how to convince a room full of politicians that kids deserve a chance. His father smiled faintly. "You'll do fine. Just tell them the truth." "I will," Eli said. Then after a pause, "Do you think Rex will ever come around?" Hale was silent for a moment. "Men like him don't change overnight. But sometimes when the world stops giving them the fear they feed on, they find something else to hold on to. You gave him that chance. Whether he takes it or not, that's up to him." The following Monday, the town hall was packed. Eli stood at the front, holding his notes but barely glancing at them. The council members sat in a semicircle, their expressions mixed, some curious, some cautious, some clearly skeptical. The mayor, a graying man with tired eyes, leaned forward. "Mr. Carter," he began, "tell us what you want for this center of yours." Eli took a slow breath. "It's not mine," he said. "It's the town's. It's every parent who wants their child to grow up safe, every kid who needs a place to belong. Right now, we're keeping them off the streets. But we could do more than that. We could prepare them for real futures." He spread his plans on the table, pages filled with sketches, budgets, and schedules. "We have community members who can teach valuable skills, mechanics who can teach auto repair, builders who can teach carpentry, even shop owners willing to mentor. We can give teens a reason to believe they matter." The room was quiet. Even the usual chatter of the back row had gone still. Eli continued, his voice steady. When you invest in kids, you invest in the town. You make sure the next generation doesn't have to choose between survival and purpose. He looked around the room, meeting each council member's eyes. We've spent too long pretending that small towns can't change. But they can. If we want Eastvale to thrive, it starts with believing in people again. The mayor sat back, studying him. You speak like someone twice your age. I've seen what happens when good people stay silent, Eli said. I'd rather be tired than silent. There was a murmur of approval, a soft wave of clapping from the back rows where the public sat. Among them, he spotted his father, leaning slightly on his cane but watching with quiet pride. Then a familiar voice spoke from the corner of the room. He's right, every head turned. Rex Morrow was standing near the doorway, hat in hand, his usual arrogance replaced with something else. Plainness, maybe even humility. He wore no leather jacket this time, only a work shirt and jeans. I used to think places like that center were a waste, Rex said, stepping forward. Thought they took away from the people who worked hard for this town. But I was wrong. A stunned silence spread through the hall. Rex's words sounded strange to the people who had feared him for years. I watched what that kid did, Rex continued. He didn't fight me back when he could have. He didn't humiliate me when everyone would have cheered if he had. He showed more control than most men ever will. That's the kind of leadership this place needs. He looked straight at Eli. You said everyone was welcome. That offer still stand? Eli nodded. It always has. Rex's lips twitched into a small, uncertain smile. Then maybe I'll start by helping fix that basketball hoop in the back. Heard it's been broken for months. The room erupted into soft laughter, the kind that breaks tension rather than mocks it. The mayor smiled faintly. Sounds like you've already got volunteers. By the end of the meeting, the council voted unanimously to fund the new programs. As people began to file out, Hale joined his son near the podium. You handled that better than most seasoned politicians. I just told the truth, Eli said. His father nodded. That's what your mother used to say. They walked outside together, the night air cool and clean. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, and the town hall's windows glowed behind them. For the first time, Eastvale felt alive, not with noise or conflict, but with hope. As they reached the truck, Hale stopped and looked back toward the building. You know, he said, what happened today wasn't about proving who's strongest. It was about showing what strength really means. Eli smiled softly, holding the bronze compass in his hand. Not all strength makes noise, he said, repeating his grandfather's words. His father rested a hand on his shoulder. Now you understand. They climbed into the truck, the headlights cutting through the dark road ahead. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of a basketball bounced against pavement, the promise of something still growing. The following week, Eastvale seemed to bloom like it hadn't in years. The air felt cleaner, the streets livelier, as if the town itself had remembered how to stand tall. Word of the council's decision spread quickly. More people began to stop by the community center. Not just parents, but shop owners, retirees, and even a few teenagers who used to hang around the parking lots with nothing to do. Inside, hammers rang, sawdust floated in the light, and laughter filled the halls again. A small miracle had taken root in what once was just a building with peeling paint. Eli spent most of his days helping to organize the new programs. He worked side by side with volunteers, some new, some familiar, all driven by something they couldn't quite explain but could finally feel. Progress, unity, belief. One afternoon, as he stood by the open window checking inventory lists, the sound of an engine caught his ear. A motorcycle rumbled into the lot, not loud or threatening, but steady. Rex climbed off, wearing a simple work shirt instead of his usual vest. The same man who had once turned the center into a battleground now carried a toolbox in one hand and a coil of wire in the other. Still need someone to fix that hoop? Rex asked. Eli nodded. We've been waiting for you. Rex walked to the back court without fanfare. A few kids paused their games, whispering in surprise. Devin's eyes went wide as he recognized him. Is that? Eli smiled. Yeah, let him work. They watched as Rex climbed the ladder, carefully unscrewing rusted bolts and replacing the bent rim. It wasn't much, but it was something no one in Eastvale had ever imagined seeing. The man who once ruled through fear, fixing something for the next generation to enjoy. When the hoop was secure again, Rex climbed down, wiped his hands on his jeans, and stepped back. Try it, he said to Devin. The boy dribbled, aimed, and sent the ball flying through the air. It hit the rim, circled once, then dropped cleanly through. The sound of the net snapping made everyone cheer. Rex let out a quiet laugh, the kind that sounded strange coming from him. "Guess it still works," Devin grinned. "You fixed it better than new." As the crowd dispersed, Eli walked over. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Rex shrugged. "Maybe not. But I owed this town something. You reminded me of that." Eli studied him for a moment. "You're welcome here, Rex, as long as you want to help." "I don't know how to do what you do," Rex admitted. "Talking to people, calming them down. I only ever knew one way to lead, by being louder than everyone else." Eli smiled gently. "Then maybe it's time you tried another way." Rex nodded once. "Maybe it is." That evening, as the sun dipped low, the town gathered again, not for conflict, but for celebration. The community center held an open event, a showcase of what it had become. Music played softly from a speaker. Children painted signs, and families shared food from tables lined with homemade dishes. Eli stood near the doorway, greeting people as they came in. His father joined him, leaning on his cane but looking stronger than he had in years. "You built something real here," Hale said. "Something that'll last." "I didn't build it alone," Eli replied. Everyone had to decide they were done living in fear. Hale looked around the crowded room, pride glimmering in his eyes. "That's the hardest kind of victory. The quiet one." As the night went on, the lights inside the center glowed warm and steady. Children ran across the newly fixed court. Parents laughed with neighbors who had once been strangers. For the first time, Eastvale felt whole. Toward the end of the evening, the mayor took the small stage near the front. "This center started as an idea," he said, "but it's become a symbol of what we can be when we stand together. And we owe much of that to one young man who refused to back down when it mattered most." The crowd turned toward Eli. Applause rose, gentle at first, then louder, spreading through the room like a heartbeat. He felt heat rush to his face and shook his head. "It's not about me," he said. "It's about all of us." But in that moment, every person in the room knew the truth. It had taken one person's courage to remind them of their own. Later, when the last guest had left and the lights were dimmed, Eli walked outside. The night was calm, the stars sharp against the dark sky. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the bronze compass. The metal was warm from his hand. His father joined him, moving slowly down the steps. "Your grandfather used to say that compass doesn't point north," Hale said. "It points to whoever needs to remember what matters most." Eli smiled, closing his fingers around it. "Then I guess it's pointing right here." They stood in silence for a while, watching the faint glow from the windows behind them. From somewhere inside, a basketball bounced once, echoing like a heartbeat through the empty hall. Eastvale wasn't perfect. There would still be arguments, setbacks, and people who doubted change. But something fundamental had shifted. The fear that once controlled the town had been replaced by something stronger: trust. As they walked to the truck, Hale rested a hand on his son's shoulder. "You did good, Eli. Your mother would be proud." Eli looked back at the center one last time, its windows shining like lanterns in the dark. "She taught us both how to stand our ground," he said. The engine started softly, headlights cutting through the quiet street. Behind them, laughter spilled faintly from the building, drifting out into the night. And for the first time in a long while, Eastvale didn't feel like a place waiting for trouble. It felt like home.